Hey everybody, I'm Jay Scherr with Jay Scherr Business Consulting. We help entrepreneurs, business owners, and other leaders maximize their potential, build rock-solid foundations for their businesses, and create more freedom in their lives. And you've joined Business Minds Coffee Chat. Stephen Colbert said, "Life is an improvisation. You have no idea what's going to happen next, and you are mostly just making things up as you go along." On today's episode, we talk about improvising in everyday life, how improv can improve communication and relationships, the maxims of improv wisdom, the forays, and more. My guest is a world authority on improvising in everyday life. She's a writer, a professor emerita from Stanford University, where she became the head of the undergraduate acting program, was the winner of the Dinkelspiel Award for her outstanding innovation in undergraduate education, and founded the Stanford Improvisors, an improv theater troupe. She's a frequent speaker for business and education groups, and her corporate clients have included Google, Apple, Adobe, and many others. Please welcome the woman who's encouraging us all to improvise our lives and make more mistakes, Patricia Ryan Madson. Patricia, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm delighted to be here, and we'll see what this improvisation holds. That is a hard word, improvisation. I noticed it's sometimes trips.
It definitely trips me up. I get stuck on it. I can say improv, no problem, but the longer words sometimes trip me up for sure. So, Patricia, let's dive right in. I would love it if, as a starting point, if you would share with all of us what your favorite thing is about yourself and why.
The favorite thing about myself is that I am always trying to improve my attention. It's a real challenge because I think what we notice becomes the world that we live in. So as I've aged, I'm realizing that the world that's right in front of me is much richer, more diverse and detailed than I often notice because I've been living in the same world, in the same house for a long time. So I like about myself that I am constantly learning new things. Yesterday when I went on my everyday walk, which is up the hill behind my house, I decided to play an alphabet game where I would look for the letters of the alphabet in order anywhere I could find them on signs or license plates or garbage bins or whatever. So it gave me a whole different focus, and I saw things that I had never seen before. And yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I did a color observation. What are the different colors I see? And I would name them out loud. Now, what's all that about? I realized that we often move through life without really noticing what we're noticing. And a good improviser is someone who notices what's there and then reacts to it, lives with it, makes the most of it. So if we can all notice more, I mean, a very simple exercise that I often do with students is to say, just close your eyes where you are right now. We can actually do this while I'm saying it. So close your eyes where we are right now. And see if you can create a picture in your mind of the room or the environment that you're in. What are some of the details? What's right in front of you? What's to your left and right? What's above you? What details are there? And so we just try to get the picture as if we were doing a photograph of or a video of the room that we're in. And now we open our eyes and look around. Okay, we can open our eyes. How am I in remembering or having noticed the room that I'm in. It's often a surprise, even to me, and I'm working on this. And so what's that about? Why would it be important? I'm not going to necessarily have a quiz on the immediate environment, but the more we notice, the more our world appreciates, if you will. So we should never take our attention for granted. And it's always, there's so many interesting things to discover. I was just reading a book about noticing, and it gave an exercise that an art teacher once gave her students. She sent them into a museum and said, you have to stand in front of this same painting for 3 hours. Wow. And they, of course, rebelled. Oh, that's ridiculous. Of course not. But finally, because it was the assignment and they had to do it, they stood in front of the same painting for 3 hours. Well, it's quite remarkable. You can imagine what you might learn about that painting, how your mind would be engaged with what's in front of you. There's a statistic that the average patron in a museum actually stands in front of a painting or a work of art for 17 seconds. So we think we see what's around us. So what I guess I'm pleased about myself is that I'm trying to improve the quality and diversity of my life through the things that I'm noticing and paying attention to. Like I love, right behind your head is this marvelous painting of cups, your coffee cup thing, and it's got yellow and blue and green and really lovely orange. So besides your smiling face, I'm enjoying the background we have today.
Well, thank you for noticing that. That is actually painted by my wife, who's a professional artist. And as you were walking us through that exercise where we closed our eyes and imagined the room around us and what we would see, looking left, looking right, looking in front of us, looking up, the ironic thing, and this is terrible for me to say, so if my wife listens to this, I apologize. There is a large painting that she painted for me that is in the back corner of my studio. And when I had my eyes closed, I pictured practically everything in this room that I would normally see when my eyes are open, except for that painting. When I opened my eyes and that painting caught my attention, I was like, I can't believe I didn't visualize that, which is really interesting. But, you bring up a great point about not necessarily paying attention to the things that are around us. And just speaking of art for another moment, one of the things that my wife has tried to instill in me is to spend more time appreciating what's in front of me. So to use your example of being in a museum or a gallery and spending time looking at a painting more than 17 seconds, but really trying to take in what that painting means, looking at the specific details, brush strokes, color patterns, all those different areas. It makes a difference. I start to look at things differently, and it has a ripple effect because it tends to roll over into other areas of life too. Paying more attention to conversations, being more interested in what someone else has to say, asking better questions because I want to explore and understand. So I love that you shared that about yourself. I think that's fantastic, and I really appreciate the exercises that you are using for yourself each day as you go on these walks. I think that's something that I'm going to start to incorporate in my life as well. Absolutely. So, Patricia, I have found through my own experience and also with the clients that I work with that there are moments that can change the course of our lives. What is one of those moments that you've experienced yourself?
Ooh, moments that have changed the course of my life. What a great question. it's not exactly a moment, but it's something that I did. In my mid-40s, I realized that I needed to take a break from university teaching, and I packed one suitcase and put all of my worldly possessions in a storage and took a trip around the world by myself with a single brown suitcase and with no phone. This was 1982, before there were phones, so I didn't have Yahoo or Yelp to help me find the next best B&B, but I did have a ticket around the world and a sort of the idea that I was going to find out what I could about how the world works and how I manage and how to take care of myself. And I think my decision to take that trip and all that I learned about myself and the world was probably a defining kind of moment in my life. And I can say that the thing that I learned is that the universe is friendly. I think Einstein or someone said that's the only real question we have to ask, is the universe friendly? And I found that it was. If I went with open heart and hands, things came to me, people helped me. If I was not well, someone would take me to an acupuncturist or bring me a cup of water or something, or lead me to the next town. I think that I'm pleased about that because I couldn't do that trip today because we do have the cell phone that is intermediating between me and the world, if you will. And while that has a lot of advantages, we all know, we often today miss that direct experience that we have of being with people and learning what we need to know from those around us. And I think this applies really in business because often there's a set of characters that people that are in our office that we work with, and we have a way of communicating with. And, a lot of that is texting these days. That really being in a room with someone, even if it's a virtual room like this, and making the effort to really listen, pay attention, is one of the most fundamental things that improv has to offer. And when we pay more attention, and that's why some of these silly games like looking at the different colors as I walk, allows me not just to get my exercise, but to also keep my attention as part of the world that I'm in. So the trip around the world that I chose to take, which was full of adventures, was a really wonderful thing.
All right, so a couple of questions then about that time period. So you mentioned this, you were in your mid-40s at this point, and you said that you needed to take a break from university. What was going on at that point where you felt this is a time for me to take that break and take this exploration, which what I'm understanding is part of that was to understand more about how the world works and your place in that world, also self-exploration. So, yes. and I want to ask you about that here in a moment, but first, what was happening where you felt you really needed to take a break from university?
Well, I had been teaching theater, acting primarily, for almost 15 years at that point. And it seemed that teaching acting is about teaching how to be human in public, if you will, how to access your own humanity, your feelings, your sensory understanding, your communication skills. And in order to keep being an acting teacher, I needed to know more about the world and people and things. In fact, the research topic that I drummed up to get a grant was to research performance pedagogy in Asia. So when I went to India and Nepal and Thailand, I would ferret out what their performance things were for that country. And for example, on Bali, I spent time studying Balinese dancing, a particular form of very intricate, you wiggle your head a lot, and the music is that tinkle tinkle. So I'm trying to get back to the question, which is I needed to know more about how humans around the world did the thing that I was doing, teaching drama. And in trying to do that, I knew I would never become a Balinese dancer, but I learned how the communication and the traditions of those different cultures in Asia worked. It was great fun, and I learned a lot of it. It gave me a focus rather than just being a tourist, to try to come to a place to see how does your culture share your experience through some dramatic form. And I even had fun in India.
So this gave you... I want you to continue that thought. So this gave you experiential knowledge that you were missing or that you were hungry for from a world perspective.
Exactly. So much in higher education, especially in university, I think, is done in books and libraries and words. And so research tends to be something that's quantitative, and I was just hungering to get out and past my 40th birthday, and I think I was on Kuta Beach in, is that Bali or Thailand? Thailand, I think. And it was, I would wish everyone to have a kind of a journey without a tour guide to find their way from point A to point B and see what comes next. I'm really grateful I was able to do that, and that I find myself in the period of my life that when I was 40, we didn't have cell phones. Today, I couldn't imagine a trip like that without being able to text and communicate and talk to my husband or get help or information. But it was very wonderful and revealing to do it that way. It was an improvisation.
So you use the word revealing, and I'm so glad that you used that word. What was revealed to you about yourself as you were going through this experience? Really a twofold question that I have for you. So number one, what did the trip reveal about yourself? Number two, how specifically did the trip change you as a person and as a teacher?
Wow.
So number one, what did it reveal about you? What did you learn about Patricia? And then how did it change you in the way that you teach?
Wonderful, wonderful question. My gosh, you're a good question giver.
Thank you.
I think what was revealed was my own resilience and flexibility, because so much of the trip was pure improvisation. I would land from a local bus in a small town in India, and I had to work for my wits to find out how to get to where was a bed and breakfast or a place to stay. I'd have to find someone who could help me do that. And help was always there if I was able to be patient. Things happened while I was traveling in their own time, and I learned to respect that, and to respect that I had a resilience and a flexibility that was not usually tested in the everyday world when I was living in California and driving my car to teach at Stanford every day. That was great to know that I could survive, and some of the circumstances were scary or not just fun and games. I once on a beach in Bali found that I was dehydrated in the sun, and I was far away. I felt if I couldn't get water, I would probably die. I had made the mistake of going to this remote beach with a friend to have a great day in the sun without really thinking about the implications of that. And when it became clear that I might actually be about to lose my life if I didn't get water, it turned out that the friend went for water and left me under a palm frond and came back and with the water and helped save me, and we got back to town miles and miles away. So even in an extreme situation of almost losing my life out of not being wise about what I was doing, it seemed as if the universe wanted me to be alive to keep on doing what I was doing. So there maybe was some purpose to my life. And I guess it changed me in the sense that we don't know what's going to happen next, do we? No. This is true more so now than ever before. And how we look at that unknown has a lot to do with our daily experience, I think. And if I can look at that unknown with a sense of trust, I don't have to have self-confidence. I can have reality confidence that somehow things will work out. And as long as I'm alive, I've got something that I'm here to do to be useful for the planet. That's my thought. I have a quote somewhere that I can't quite give credit to about if you're still alive, it means that there's some reason for that. And I just recently turned 80. And so at 80, I'm finding that my energy level is a lot lower than it was when I was 40 or thereabouts. But how marvelous that I'm able to have this conversation with you that maybe will pass on into the world and still have a chance to share stories that might be helpful to other people. Does that make sense?
Wow. It makes total sense, and thank you for sharing that. So I understand, and I don't know if this was on this trip or perhaps another one, that you had spent some time in a Zen monastery in Japan where you were practicing Nikon, if that's how it's pronounced.
Yes. Perfect.
And that's the Japanese art of self-reflection. That's about looking within. So first, was this the same trip, or was this a different experience for you?
The Nikon experience was another trip. It wasn't during the year and a half literally around the world, but I went back to Japan to do Nikon, which is I went to a monastery and was led through a week of this practice. But I'm really delighted you bring that up, because the Wake Up to the Gifts maxim in the book is my very favorite. I'm often asked that question, which one's your favorite? It has to do with what I learned for sitting for a week. Some Zen-type meditations are really about emptying your mind completely and becoming at one with the moment or some kind of mindfulness. This was very specific in that I had 3 questions that I was trying to answer as I sat thinking about my own life. And the 3 questions of Nikon are, 1, what have you received from others? And we're going to not just be generic here, but we'll tack that to a particular person. What have I received, say, from my mother? What have I given back to her? And what trouble and bother have I caused her? Just those 3. And you notice we're not trying to focus on what trouble and bother she caused me, partly because we all know that. We're real good at remembering what others don't do that we wish they had, or the trouble they cause us. But these 3 questions are a rubric to look at our own lives. So in this reflection, we were given the assignment of meditate on those three questions, looking for specific examples for your early years, from birth to age 6, and then from 6 through 12, and then high school, and then college. And then you go through your life in increments that were sort of natural, trying to remember what was going on with those three questions and that person in mind. And so what was revealed, it took a while to get my mind to want to think back, what on earth was I doing between the ages of 6 and 12? And then I'd have to think, where was I? Well, I was in grammar school, this grammar school. Oh, there was Miss Fentress. Oh, gosh. And yes, and there was the school play. And my mother made my costume for that. Oh, and when she gave it to me, I put it on, and I complained that I didn't like it. It didn't fit well. And I realized after my mother had stayed up all night to make this costume for me that all I could do was complain. That must have really been hard on her. We don't generally think about what we do as children that are not very kind to our parents. So if you can imagine, you're looking at what I've received, what I've given in a positive way, and what trouble I've caused as the rubric to redefine your whole life. Well, long story short, it's quite revealing to realize how much I've received from others all of my life and continue. And that's the thing, that now that lens, along with trying to pay more attention to attention, is noticing what I'm receiving from others, moment by moment. Not just others, but for example, right now, the internet is carrying you and me across time and space to make this communication. Somebody invented this Riverside app that we're working on. Someone created the miracle of our ability to be able to talk to each other and help each other across time and space. And if you start to realize how much we are supported by the work of others, everything that we have is in some way the result of the work and efforts of others. And I think if I wanted to give a message to business leaders, I think you cannot spend enough time noticing what your workers and employees are doing and honoring that. Noticing what they do, even if it's their job and they're paid for it, noticing and expressing your appreciation. I realize that the phrase, "you're doing a great job," is something we ought to be saying constantly. I try to notice what that is. When I go to the grocery store, the clerk that's checking me out, I'll say, "How long have you been standing today?" She says, "Oh, I came on at 8, and I've been here about 4 hours." "Wow, you've been on your feet for 4 hours. You're really doing a good job. Thank you." And that's true. It's not some kind of goopy gratitude practice. It's noticing the details of how others' lives and their work make ours possible.
Absolutely. And so there's two points that I want to make in regards to that. One is what you just said about the noticing, paying attention, acknowledging someone else's effort, the work that they're doing. And
Yes.
when I'm working with clients, that is a big part of leadership, obviously, is being able to coach up others so you're developing future leaders. Part of that is the acknowledgement of the contributions that others on a team are making. So when we acknowledge someone, I always try to encourage being very specific about what you are acknowledging. So if you see someone doing something that goes above and beyond, or they're doing a great job, yes, you can say, "Hey, great job." I think it is more meaningful if you're very specific on what they were doing in that moment and acknowledging that, because that shows that you're paying attention and that you appreciate the nuance, the specific details of whatever that person was doing. So that was the one point. The other one that I wanted to make was I had watched a talk that you gave at Google, and at the beginning of your talk, you spent a couple of minutes acknowledging and recognizing all of the different ways that Google has impacted your life, all of the different tools, and you told a great story and gave specific examples, everything from, being able to find a particular product that you were looking for, or finding your way from point A to point B. I mean, a litany of different things that Google has done. And here, obviously, there was a room full of Googlers there, right? But the fact that you were looking at Google through a different lens, you were appreciative of the different areas where they put all of their time and attention in creating these services and these products. You were acknowledging them, but then tying them back to your daily life and how that impacts you. I think the more we can do that from a business perspective, if you will, thinking about our own customers, our clients, and the work that we do and that impact that it makes, and getting more granular about that, the better we'll be in the long run. Awareness and understanding, just a better understanding.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate your noticing that the first 15 minutes of the Google talk, because I've often thought that was my one opportunity to sort of to make a point in the world, and I spent it with that detailed list. And I imagine a lot of people wondering, what does she have to say about improv? Oh, well, hold on. I thought I missed a chance, but somehow that the fact that made an impact on you means it wasn't just 15 minutes lost. But you're absolutely right. It's the detail.
Yeah, it wasn't lost on me at all. And quite frankly, what I was thinking as I was listening to you, and I would encourage everyone that's watching and listening right now to do a Google search or a search on your browser for Patricia's talk at Google, and listen to those first few minutes and imagine yourself being in that audience and having someone else who is experiencing your product or service and sharing these stories with you about how your company, how about the products and services and the things that you do are improving their lives. I mean, imagine for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, someone going on and on about how the things that you're doing, the things that are important to you, are making a difference in someone else's life. I mean, that's powerful. That's awareness. It's amazing. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Golly.
Absolutely. And by the way, and I know, I'm sure you're fully aware of this, but the Nikon experience that you went through, that's actually a type of therapy that has been incorporated, that ability to be able to go within and ask those deeper questions that you had just brought up. So it clearly has gone beyond just what's happening in Japan as an example, right? This is something that has spread to other parts of the world.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So I would love it if you would share with all of us, what is, in your experience and your interpretation, what is improvisation? What is it? And then also, what are the most common misconceptions about it?
Let me actually start with that. The most common misconception is that improv equals comedy. We think of stand-up comedians as improvisers, and someone like Robin Williams comes to mind with improv. And in fact, when it's suggested someone study improv, the very first response they would have, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at being witty or thinking on my feet. Now, I'm pretty good if I have time to think things through. But this misconception that it's about comedy or quick-wittedness, when real improvisation is making whatever comes your way into something artful or useful. It has to do with a mindset of, I'll pull up my 4 A's now, that I can take my 13 maxims and put them into. The first A is attention, and that's what I started today with. I'm trying to work on my attention to my attention. What am I noticing, and in what detail, and is it where I want my attention to be? Attention to life in its detail, what others are doing especially. And then the second A is acceptance. You probably all have heard that improv is about yes and. Okay. In order to improvise, you can't go with the mind of no, which is a common way that we block something before we even entertain it. So if I'm attending to life, the next step is to accept whatever shows up. Sometimes it's something delightful, and sometimes it's a terrible block in the road or some illness or something. Acceptance. Attention, acceptance, and then the third is appreciation. We've just been talking about that. How can I take what I have noticed and accepted and find the good and praise it? And once I've gone through that cycle of attending to life, accepting what we have, appreciating for what others are doing, then the fourth A is action. That's when I step in and, okay, what's my job now? What needs to be done given what I've just discovered from this 4 perspective? And we can always keep working on our attention and the quality of it and the detail of it, and also working on acceptance and appreciation. And then it's pretty easy. Then we do what needs to be done. I put these little quotation marks because that's doing what needs to be done is a phrase that I first got from David K. Reynolds, who is an author who's written books on constructive living. And constructive living is a combination of Nikon psychotherapy and another Japanese therapy called Morita. Shoma Morita had a very action-based idea of mental health, that we're not sick, we just need life education. So accept your feelings and then do what you need to do. Doing what needs to be done, which is a little different from what I want to do. So it's not so much self-focused on what my desires are. Often what needs to be done is something related to others in the world.
Absolutely. So before we go any further, I want to make sure that we're making a point here that the 4 A's that you just talked about, and you referenced just before that the 13 maxims. So this is from your book called Improv Wisdom, which of course we're going to link to in the show notes. But I want to read a quote here very briefly from best-selling author Steven Pressfield. And Steven Pressfield said, and this is quoted, "There are very few books on creativity that I would take with me to a desert island. One for sure is Patricia Ryan Madson's Improv Wisdom." So obviously a lot of meaning behind that quote, and that just accentuates how impactful this book has become to many, many people. And so the book itself, Improv Wisdom, you do share 13 maxims or rules, if you will, for improvisational living. And what I'd like to do, obviously you distilled that to the 4 A's, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to, and we've already touched on a couple of these, but I'd like to go through just maybe 2 or 3 of the maxims I don't want to go through everything because obviously in the time that we have together, I want everyone to at least come away with something that would resonate with them, and then more importantly, let them go purchase the book, read it, and get the details that are absolutely going to help them out in their lives and in their businesses. So you already talked about saying yes. So why don't you pick a couple of the maxims and let's explore those a bit more deeply.
Great, sure. Good. Oh, I like that. Well, I'll start with two of them that are often controversial and seem counterintuitive. One of the maxims is make mistakes, please. Well, that couldn't be good advice. And actually what I mean is not so much to on purpose try and make a mistake, but do something that you might not otherwise do for fear of mistakes, and don't let the fear of mistakes get in the way of experimenting and trying things with your life. So go in the direction that you could make a mistake. Try that thing that you're sure you're not good at. Almost everyone I know thinks they're terrible at art, but it's not about being good at things. If you try some art, you're going to have an experience. Just read a wonderful essay about the importance of trying a variety of different things rather than trying to become an expert in one. That it's just great to be sort of an average artist or dancer or musician. And so making mistakes, or don't let mistakes get in the way. There's a lot of examples of how the greatest inventions in history have come from hundreds of mistakes. The light bulb, or I think Viagra is another one that was a mistake. It was going to be some kind of heart med, and then it found it had this other unusual effect. So mistakes are our friends. The other maxim I'd love to talk a little about, and this one is truly counterintuitive, is be average. Okay, well, she can't possibly mean that. My students at Stanford almost laughed that one off. You can't really mean be average. Well, I actually do. What I've discovered is that our mania for excellence very often gets in the way of an enormous amount of creativity which is just natural to the individual. You're already unique. If you strive after uniqueness or creativity, you miss using the natural intelligence that you already have. So be average is take the pressure off yourself, keep doing things, and let your natural view of the world come through. It's not so much that I'm aiming to make sure I'm average, but if I take the pressure off of myself that this has got to be the best interview I've ever done, or I've got to make that perfect kick in football. There's an example of that. Whenever we're trying to do our best, it commonly backfires because there's an extra stress on the body-mind when you're in that effortful thing. We want to be able to use our natural intelligence without the impediment of striving. I mentioned I've got a group of friends that before COVID used to meet once a month on a Friday night. It was called Bad Art Night. And we got together we'd all bring our projects, whether it's watercolor or knitting or something, and went to a lady's house, and we spent 3 hours together doing our bad art. And of course it was that allowed everybody to show up because we know we can do bad art, right? That's no problem. And what's, of course, maybe not so intuitive is that you have to be doing art to make any kind of art, bad, good, or indifferent. And so
True.
it's the doing itself. You have to often kick yourself into doing something that you wouldn't do because you're afraid you're not going to do it well enough. Oh, give it up, you know. So I really encourage people to take the pressure off of themselves, even when it seems to be when it is for all the marbles. Just do your average whatever. Kick.
So let's talk about that one for a moment.
Okay.
And in full disclosure, when you and I were talking about setting up our conversation today, and we had some back and forth emails, in one of the emails that you sent to me, you had mentioned about being average and that you would be prepared to push back on me on that point because you believe very strongly in it. And my question to you is, and this is not right or wrong, I'm just asking the question so we can explore this. Would that, if we use the philosophy of be average, does that take away at all from the ability to, or the desire to strive to learn more, strive to build additional skill sets and be a better version of who we are today?
I don't think so. I think the goal of being a better person is more likely served when we take the pressure off of ourselves. It's sort of like I'm not against excellence or growing. I'm against the striving that seems to be a necessary motivation. I don't think we need to be motivated to be excellent to keep working on the world that we're in with our own abilities. I don't think I'm saying this very well, but I think no one would disagree with your initial idea that shouldn't life be about sort of improving things if we can? Of course. But the best way to do that, I believe, is to give up on some kind of need for Olympic excellence in everything we do. I'm sure the wonderful speaker you had recently, who is an Olympian, was actually giving a lot of support for his idea of go for the gold, and that's what keeps you going. I just say that's a good way to do something, and the way I'm offering is another way. See what happens if you realize that you already have what you need, and Suzuki Roshi said, and you can use a little improvement, okay? I'm all for improvising your life, which is trying stuff that you haven't done before and that you're not sure if you'll be good at. It's this constant evaluation, whether I'm good or better or best at this or that is not our friend, I believe. It doesn't. You could argue that it's the impetus to do more. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, and I love this conversation because I'm exploring this with you in real time, and so I want to be open-minded enough to listen to the rationale behind it and look for the meaning behind it. And I look at, I'll use Google as an example, since we were talking about the Google talk that you did. I wonder, if I look at Google, I guess the way that the term that I would use for Google is not average. I think that, and this is just my interpretation, and please push back on me if and when you hear something that you either completely disagree with or maybe can shed some more light for me so I have a better understanding. In my mind, Google is regularly looking at ways of going beyond the line of normality, if you will. They're looking to create experiences and create products and services that are not what an average company can create. Okay. And their ability to do that means that their culture, or they're surrounding themselves with talented people who are able to, and I will say to your point that I believe they already have this within, right? It's a matter of pulling that out and then experimenting with that wisdom and that knowledge and those talents that they have within to go beyond what we accept as a what's the word I'm trying to use? I'll just go back to average. That's not the word I want to use, but so help me with that. Push back on me. And let me also add this just very briefly, Patricia. If we want to strive for the sole purpose of accumulating more stuff, that I'm not a proponent of. If that is the reason that we are looking to become a better version of who we are, or to push our level of creativity beyond what is, quote, average, whatever that is, for the sake of having more things, then I would question that and say, why? What is the reason for that? Why?
I completely agree with that. I don't think the be average maxim is about only wanting a world that doesn't have anything of excellence. Oh, of course not. In a way, it's a trick. The best way to be your best self is to take the pressure off yourself to let your ideas come through. There's an example in the book of someone coming into a business meeting, and everybody around is trying to think of the most far-out creative ideas. Creative ideas are easy, by the way. They're a dime a dozen to think of fried mermaids or something that no one's ever thought of. And I'm grateful that there are people that like to do that kind of thinking. But in order to get anything done, somehow our natural ability to use what we already know, there's somebody at that meeting that says, well, it seems to me if we just do X, which is the thing that's sort of right in front of everybody, rather than it's a wild idea out there, seems like a revelation. That what is obvious to you, because you are unique, Jay, what is obvious to you, or in a sense average, what's the thing that's, of course this is what it is, will be a revelation to somebody else. But if we're all striving for that out-of-the-box, call it fried mermaids, that wildly creative idea, we might miss what's right in front of us that can solve a problem. Does that make sense?
That lands with me. Okay. And thank you for using that as an example, because I have a better understanding of how you're using that then as one of the maxims. And you know, I mean, as you had stated to me before our conversation, you know, you look at the various guests that I've had on this show, and we talk a lot about excellence, about reaching our potential, about overcoming adversity, about growth, and all these wonderful things. But here's the common through line, and this is exactly what you just said. The common through line of all of these conversations, it's already there.
It's already there.
It is already there. And when you begin to acknowledge that, when you begin to recognize that, and often it takes someone else to be able to recognize that in you. That's one of the great benefits of mentorship and
Yes.
being around other people great teachers, as an example, who can see something in someone that they can't see themselves, and then help them to recognize it and help them pull it out so they can experience the true juice of what that means to them. So beautiful. So thank you for that. So again, Improv Wisdom, we will link to purchase a copy of the book in the show notes. Highly encourage you to do this and read that book, better understand it, and apply. One of the 4 A's that you mentioned, Patricia, was action. That was the 4th A. In anything that we do, and we certainly talk about this on this show on a regular basis, anything that we do, we can read information. You can sit here and watch this or listen to this episode right now. But if you don't apply action to what you're learning, then really nothing changes. You have the knowledge, but the power comes when you attach action to that knowledge. So please do that. So, Patricia, as we are wrapping up our conversation today, 2 things. First, what is the greatest gift that life has given you that you didn't recognize at the time?
I think it's the ability to notice the gifts. Somehow, I've always been a moderately attentive person and appreciative of the world, but I do think that seeing the incredible gift in all of life is the thing that I am, in a sense, most grateful for. It sounds, it's the detail of that, and every day I'm learning more and more, and I don't have to go around the world anymore. I can access those gifts as I am right now from your attention and the hour we've spent together. I hope there's been something that we've said that ends up being useful to you all. We're all improvising. Conversation is an improvisation, so you don't have to wait to be on stage.
That's exactly right. And my final question to you, Patricia, is would you please give our audience and me a challenge? What is one thing that you would challenge us to do starting today?
Okay. I would challenge you to, somewhere in your computer or in a notebook, to write down 5 people that have that you've received things from in your life, and keep adding to that list. So, and what is it that you've received from this person? Just their name and what you've received. And so each day I want you to keep adding 5 more on. Who is, and it may end up being someone you don't know personally, like the author, I just read a book by Rob Walker on noticing that I would have on my list. So keep noticing all the people in your life, and keep a running list of who they are, and along with that, see if you can increase your attention, the detail of your attention, 5% every day. Notice more. Stop. Take time. In fact, I wanted to say, Jay, after the program, I want you to go over and stand for 2 minutes in front of your wife's painting, the one that you know so well. Let's see if you can discover something new after 2 minutes of just really looking again. Let's keep looking, okay? Looking and noticing who we're receiving from.
Beautiful. Thank you for that challenge. I'm definitely going to take you up on that one, and I know many in our audience will as well. And Patricia, in the spirit of noticing the gifts, I want to notice you and appreciate you and thank you so very much for joining us today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. Thank you for sharing of part of your story, sharing of your humanity, of your grace, of your wisdom for bringing improv wisdom to life, and the fact that it is as relevant today as it was the day that you published it. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here, and I'm grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you, Jay.
Well, thank you for that. Absolutely. And for all of you, thank you so very much for watching and listening. And I do have a quick favor. Would you please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts? That goes a long way in expanding our reach and enables us to attract incredible guests just like Patricia. So please do us a favor and do that. And to enjoy more episodes, all you need to do is visit jscherbusinessconsulting.com, click that podcast button, and until next time, keep learning, keep growing. Make sure you pick up a copy of Improv Wisdom and apply the lessons you learn, and we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care, everybody.